So on Premiere, any place where this arrow goes, you can hover over any of these boxes and press your tilde key, which is, you know, that little squiggly one, and it will enlarge any of these boxes to full screen for you. Now, so that you can get basically a closer look. Now, some of these, obviously, you don't really need to use this in full screen, or this doesn't serve any purpose in full screen, but this one does, this one, and definitely your timeline, because when you enlarge your timeline to full screen, let's say you have a whole bunch of layers of audio down here and a bunch of layers of video and titles up here. Well, you may not be able to see them all in this little screen down here if you have audio going down past the screen and video going up. So that's one of the reasons that it's good to enlarge the whole screen when you're editing at certain points. Now, another thing here that I can show you is right here. If you right click here, it gives you a whole bunch of options for this monitor, and some of these down here are, this is your composite video, but this will give you, this is just different settings that you can look at. Some of these I don't really know what they are yet, so but these are here though, so you may want to research that. But mostly it's composite video of what you want to do. But also on this right click, you can undock the panel, close the frame. But so if you left click on undock the panel, what it does is allows you to move this around. So if you have a second monitor, you can basically take this to your other monitor, and then you can also do this. You can, if you want to enlarge it, this is your secondary option. Just click and drag at the corners, so you got full screen. So back to, let me show you one other option here. Now, let's say you start moving all this stuff around, and you realize, oh wow, I want it back to the way it was. If you go up here to Windows, Workspace, it's not showing the right side for whatever reason. Hold on, let me move this over a little bit further here. Okay, Windows, Workspace, you can go down to Reset Current Workspace. Click yes, and then you have everything back to where it was originally mounted at. Now, one quick thing about the source monitor, which is this, and this is your program monitor. Use them both. Learn why they're there and use them both. A lot of people forget all about this source monitor here. Let me pull up a couple videos here for you, and I'll show you. Oh, right here. This is another thing too. Over here in your projects file, this is where I have my video stored, and I have all these different bins, so everything's organized so I can find stuff a little quicker. If you need a new bin, right here, you see this little thing pops up. You click that, and you can make a new bin. You just type in whatever the name of the bin is and click enter. This little arrow right here, if it's down, means it's open. If it's like that, it's closed. So like you click left click here, you can open up the file. Left click, it closes it. So now this one I don't need here right now, so I'm just gonna highlight it and then click delete, and it's gone. But now up here, so this is some of our video from the Canon. So let's say if you right click on the file, it brings up these options right here. Now, open in source monitor is an awesome option because it allows you to open up whatever's in this file. Now, let's say you just want to open up one or two. You can just kind of highlight the ones that you want. Oops, hold on. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, I accidentally pulled those out of the file. Let me put them back in there. Okay, so let's say you just want to do, if you click on this file right here, you can already preview it up here. And you can kind of scroll through to see what's on there. Or you can press play over here. So then you can say, okay, well that is the file I want. So you can right click on that file, go down to, where is it? Open in source monitor right here. Is that showing up on your screen? Boom, it's here now. Now, the whole point of the source monitor is this is the source video that you're pulling clips out of to go into your timeline, and then your program monitor, this is what's on the timeline, your final cut of the film or whatever you're working on. But the nice thing about the source monitor is when up here it allows you to create shorter cuts. You don't have to pull the whole clip into the timeline and start chopping it up down there, because it's a pain when you're trying to put the movie together and your timeline's getting cluttered. So rather than cutting in the timeline, although you can do that too, but this makes more sense. Right here, this little button right here is a set marker. These allow you to make marker points in the video of stuff that you know you're going to want to keep. Now these buttons right here take you to your previous and your next markers, so you can see where I've done the different marker points. And the reason why these two marker points here are highlighted a different color is because, by the way, this button right here goes to your in point, this goes to your out point. So the highlighted part here is what video you have selected. If you're going to pull it out of the clip up here, you pull it down, just pull it right here. This is just this section right here. This, whatever 18 seconds of film this is right here, I just pulled down into the timeline. Now, let's say I didn't want this clip and I decided, oh, I only wanted from here to here. Well, I want to mark an in point right here. So that's what these are. Mark in, mark out. So you mark in. Now you see how it extended the length of it? But I want it to be here, so I can just click next marker, and then I click my out point. So now when I pull this file down in here, it's this section rather than that other section from earlier. So now, as you notice down here too in the timeline, there's on the top up here, there's some red and there's some green, and this is means that your workspace, your timeline, has not been rendered. Meaning this red stuff probably won't play at unless your computer is really fast. It probably won't play at regular speed because it hasn't been rendered in the timeline yet. So if you press play, because we only got one layer here, it's not too choppy. It's actually pretty clean.
Scene 3, take 2.
But let's say you do have a lot of layers and it's playing choppy and you can't get it to play back at regular speed. This red part right here, this is a wonderful thing. You just click in the box here so that you select it on this timeline. It doesn't have to click on any of the video, just click in the box itself and go up to sequence. Oops, and then render entire work area right here. Oh, it's not showing up on there. Hold on, let me I wish that monitor. Okay, so go up to sequence. Oops, sorry. Go down to render entire work area. And what it'll do is it tells you how many frames it's going to render, and this red will turn blue, green, so that it will play at regular speed without it being choppy. So normally what it does, it'll start playing as soon as it rendered it, but look how the red here is gone now. At the top of that timeline, everything is green, so that you know that in this workspace right here, it doesn't render it into a separate file, it just renders it in the workspace. So it's not like mixing it down really, it's more like just making sure it plays at regular speed. So okay, so one other quick thing here. Okay, so back over here we can close this file up. Like I said, I have a different bin for everything. Behind the scenes, the Canon, everything has a separate bin. These are just the photographs that we have. The sequences, now that's another thing real quick I want to talk to you about, is this is so helpful if you're editing a movie with multiple parts, and it gets confusing after a while if you have one timeline and it's all your whole hour-and-a-half movie, and you want to change one clip early on. Well, then you have to move everything behind that clip forward, and there are shortcuts for doing that, but sometimes it can mess up your entire flow because it moved forward the video, but some of the audio didn't go with it. So rather than dealing with that, I edit in multiple sequences, and the reason for that is you can see right here I have Casa Skit 1. That's the first one with you know, this stuff going on. Casa Skit 2 is the second piece, and then the Casa Message one is this one. And the reason why I did that is later I'll put them all together when I'm sure that each section is right, and that way if I have sound effects like when the cops come in knocking on the door, that's going to be a separate layer of audio down here. So I'll make sure it's just layered properly. It's just easier to do it that way. So to create a new sequence, you go up to File. Oh, hold on, let me move this over again. Okay, so go up to File, and right here, new, has a project sequence. You got black video, bars and tone. So I mean, you got all these things in here that, because a lot of times if you're going to submit to a film festival, they're going to want bars and tone at the beginning of your video. So it's already in here in the program for you. So that, but under file, new, that's right there. But it also is the setting for sequence, which is, oops, sorry. Okay, so file, new, sequence, and that will pop up this box right here. And what this does is has all these different settings in here. This is the 1080p, this is the 1080i, which I don't think we're doing that, but so you got your 30 frames, your 24 frames, and your 25 and 24. I think we're shooting at 30 on all this. So this is where allows you to make a new sequence that'll be empty for you to start clicking and dragging video and sound clips into. Obviously you got your 720 here, but there's a bunch of them and a bunch of different settings in here. You know, standard, widescreen, digital SLR. You know, it just depends on what kind of camera that you're using as well for these settings. You know, pretty much on this Canon setting, you may not have this in your program. This might be an add-on later, but that's what I've been using. So right down here you got your sequence name, so you can name it whatever you want. You know, like it can be called sequence, or you know, or just edit. I always number everything when I do that, because that way later, if I have more than one video going on that has the same name, I have, you know, video 1, video 2, video 3, and that way, you know, because like you can see in Casa 1, Casa Skit 1, Casa Skit 2. So anyway, this is a new sequence now. As you can see, it's empty, so you can click and drag video into here from above. Obviously you got your, oh, this button right here, this is important too. This is your, what it does is it enlarges or shrinks your timeline. Now you can click and drag it like this, or take it down. To the left is as small as it will go. I usually go about mid-range, but you know, on a short clip like this, you want to, you know, it's not very long, you want to make sure that you, oh, hold on, you know what, that's really short actually, it's 1 frame. Okay, so up here, this is another option for you in the program monitor. For whatever reason, this is only 1 frame of video, this bars and tone. So this little button right here allows me to click and drag it over, and I can extend the length of it. So let's say I want that to be the video. Oh, these arrows too are important right here, because you can go 1 frame at a time to the left or the right. So let's say the video, you're submitted a film to a contest, and they said they need 5 seconds of bars and tone at the beginning of your video. So here I'm at the 5-second mark, which you can see right here. Now that shows what length this is at. Over here shows you how long the video is, and it's 1 frame because I haven't told it to be longer than that. So I'll click my mark out right here. So now my frame, it's 1501, so I'll go back 1 frame there and click that. So there you go. So you click this down here, drop it in, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, where's my audio? Why is it way down there? This is preset at, you see all these, where it says audio 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now down here, these have 1 speaker here next to the number. Down here it looks like there's 2 speakers. That means this is stereo and these are mono. Now if you want to get rid of all this extra space, you're like, well, I don't need those right now, I'd rather have my audio up next to the video. You can right click over the audio, see where it says delete tracks, click on that, and then you get this box. Now don't just click OK, you need to tell it what, you know, what tracks. If I click OK, it's not going to do anything. I have to tell it to delete audio tracks. I'm going to say all empty tracks, but it also tells you you can delete any of these. But I'm going to say all empty ones at this point, just to make matters easy. Now watch what it does to the audio. Boom, drops it right below. So it's easier to edit it now because you can see it. Now if you want to see the actual wave file, this little arrow right here is your collapse or expand. And you can enlarge here. You can see your video up closer. Now let's say, well, you're like, I want to see the actual audio file. Right here, if you go down over any of these, it allows you to click and drag these things around. But what this one does right here is allows you to make it bigger. So now you can look at your audio clip at a much larger size. Obviously this stays the same because it's just bars. But now if you go over your audio here and right click, it brings up a whole bunch of more options. And one of my favorite ones is audio gain, which is really good. Speed and duration is good depending on if it's voices or not. You know, you don't want to speed it up unless you want a chipmunk sound, but that's a nice nice option right there. But this audio gain right here pops this up, and you can type in a number here, or you can like left click here and it'll unselect it, and then you can click and drag to the right, or if it's too loud you can click and drag and go into the negative numbers to the left. And so this will change the level of the audio. So if you left click on it again, it'll highlight it for you, and you just press your number and enter, so it's back at 0. But so you can see there's our bars and tone right there. So 5 seconds of that. Alright, so let me get rid of those real quick. So okay, so on audio here, I want to show you a couple quick things on your video. If you look at the Casa video here, you can definitely see the wave file. The really loud one at the end is the whole crowd. It somewhat peaked out the signal. The other video, the other audio was, you know, this first section's pretty good, but the second section was a little loud. So if you notice on here, I have lowered the audio here a little bit in this section, and over here completely out. The reason for this is this little wave file right there, that's Berta saying action. So, and I wanted to have the shot for a couple seconds before so we could fade into it. So what I did here is I actually dropped her audio down, and the way you do this, these are little dots here are called what are they called, keyframes, or what they're called. And what this allows you to do is, if your audio is not selected, this won't work. You have to actually click on it and then see it, it's a little white dot in the middle here. This allows you to add a keyframe. So let's say I wanted the audio here. Here, let me go ahead and I'll delete that keyframe right there. So, like, oops, I messed it up, didn't I? So no, I want to put that keyframe back. So once you do that, anything between these two keyframes is draggable up and down, and you can go from either end or from the middle. But watch this little magic right here. So if I click on the keyframe itself, though, because see, this raises all of it. But if I click on the keyframe itself, it only raises that section. You know, obviously there's a little bit of play. So if you want to, you know, you can tweak the heck out of this by just going in and adding all these keyframes in every section. You know, if you need a different level, like let's say right here, let's say this note right here had peaked out the signal, and over here you'll see it go up into red. This is a little shortcut I do too, is I'll click a keyframe right over the loud part, and then right next to it, only a couple frames away, I will add keyframes as well. So if this little line right here was too loud, I could just go in like this and just drop it down a couple decibels or half a decibel or so. Now you think, oh, that's going to be noticeable in the audio, but it's not. Because that was louder than the rest anyway. You're just bringing it down to the level where the rest of it's at. And see right there, we're peeking out somewhere. See right there, it peaked out. That's because this section is still too loud where the people are at. So I can click on the whole thing, drag it all down a little bit. Now the reason why I have a keyframe here and here is if you don't have it gradually go up or down, you'll notice that the signal all of a sudden gets louder or softer. So you have to do this is somewhat of a fade from here. And what I liked about this was, you know, is you can click and drag on that keyframe, and I'm going to click and drag. Right here is a little bit of dead space, so that's where I'm going to have the fade go, fade down to a lower volume in this dead space, not on the so if you try to fade during dialogue, sometimes it's noticeable. If you have to, but like I said, like if you need just a couple frames like this to lower the volume a little bit, that's not noticeable. But if you do this, that's going to be, listen to that difference.
Please volunteer and be a cop.
See, volunteer right on the word. So if it's more subtle, just so you don't peak out the signal.
Pasta.
You made a difference.
Be a pasta.
And see, we didn't peak out there. We didn't go up. But now I've heard different stories about where the audio signal should be for broadcast quality. You notice how you have -30, -18, -12, -6. I've been told somewhere about 6 to -3 is what is considered broadcast quality. So right now this is a little bit hot.
You made a difference. Be a pasta.
It's going almost peaking out, so this still has to come down just another half a decibel or so.
You made a difference. Be a pasta.
Yeah, see how it's kind of hovering between the 6 and the 0? That's about where you want it for television and stuff.
Thank you for watching.
See, and here I got it about the same.
Please volunteer and be a pasta.
You made a difference. Be a
So let's say all that work I just did and I decided, wow, I messed it up, I need to undo all that. Well, you can click undo a million times, or you can go to your history button, which is another nice option. Over in this section right here, where is it? Right here is history. So you have effects, info, media browser, and history. So right here is your history button. So this is everything you've done in the edit since the time that it was new and opened. So if I don't like any of that stuff that I just did, I can go back to when I started working on it and undo it. So like here I was adding all these keyframes and moving them. And then I remove the keyframe there. Okay, so about here is where I was when I started changing stuff. So that's a nice option, is that you can go back without having to undo a million times. That'll save you some time there. Another option here, when you go up to File, oops, hold on, let me move that over again. Okay, File. Now, under Save As, there's a variety of things that you can do. Now, you know about exporting on this program already, and all the settings for that. Okay, so I don't think you need to worry about that then too much, but under Save As, actually that's just where you save it at, so you know about that as well. So I don't think you need to worry about anything under here. The one thing nice about this export button though is that there is have you played with the settings down in here a lot on the different videos? Like if you're going to mix it down to, let's say, a QuickTime file, there's these video codec settings here that give you options for changing the way it's mixed down. You know, video, different types of videos, you know, MPEG, H.264. You got your regular stuff up here that we normally do, but so that's one option there. So if you have to compress the footage a little bit more, so it still looks nice, but it's not quite as big of a file as like an uncompressed AVI. Like if you do it, you know, an uncompressed Microsoft AVI, this is going to be, and it tells you right here too, 1920 by 1080. So that's a pretty big file. So even on this though, you can crunch down. Like right here, it's already telling you it's going to crunch it down and mix it to 720 by 480, and that's uncompressed. So, but that's for, like I said, uncompressed Microsoft AVI. But so anyway, you got all these settings here that and once you do select these, there's these every different option down here that you can think of as far as size and compression and, you know, whatever. And obviously you want to make sure when you do export these, both those buttons are selected too. But okay, what else can I show you off the top of my head that I'm thinking of right now. Okay, so edit out of your, pull stuff out of the program monitor, or out of the source monitor, I mean, and then you can see what you're editing here. Okay, up here under your audio mixer, this is a nice thing to know as well, and it's also under this section, is you have control. Like you can tell right here, I have this is a music layer, the second one, so that's right here, the music, I believe. Where's that? So you can click and drag here, obviously, to raise and lower audio if you have an issue all in all that you need to raise or lower it. But up here in these boxes, this is important for keeping track of it, is to name what everything is. Dialogue 1, you know, music 1, and always put 1 because you may have more than one layer of these things later to keep track of. And this could be Foley 1. Because, like I said, always give it a 1, because you, especially when Foley comes into the fix, because you know, background noises and stuff. Foley, you may have 10 layers of Foley noises at one point. So you keep adding audio tracks, and it'll keep expanding and going to the side here. And eventually, you won't even see all of them because you'll have so many that you'll have to scroll over down here to see everything. But you can also enlarge this with the tilde key. Okay, now this is your effects control box up here as well, where your source monitor is at. And this allows you, the motion run right here is size of the video. Like on this one right here, the original size of the video was a little bit smaller than this, so I zoomed in a bit because there was a weird line on the wall and it just looked uncomfortable to me. So right here is scale, so you can change that to anything that you want, back to 100% where it starts at, and I was doing it at 106, but and then this is your position button, so you can move these, you know, if you need to move the videos anywhere that you want to. But there's also a shortcut, is if you have it selected, you can always click on the video here, and you can move it around that way as well. So you can position it anywhere in there. So let's say that you wanted to make this a close-up of the two kids in the front, but oh, her head's getting a little cut off. What do we do? Well, you just reposition it and unselect it, and it'll show you what you got. You know, so this is, you know, just 200%. Now this button here says fit, but this has other options too for editing. Let's say you want to edit something really close up, so you can look at it 400% in, 200%, 150. So let's say you're just editing something in here and you needed to look at the video closer without actually changing the size of the video. So this shows you different ways right here. Here's 10% of this. This is the monitor size, not the video size. So if you want it to fit the monitor, you just click fit. Same thing goes over here as well. You know, you can do the same sizes if you need to look at it for a different reason, but I usually go to fit. So okay, so let's go back to effects control up here. So you don't see anything under effects control because you don't have a clip selected, so we click here. So we got position, and this button right here is nice. Let's say everything you just did you hated and you're like, I didn't like that. So you can either go back down to your history button and remember which settings you want to go back on, or you can go to reset, and it will reset the shot back to its original shape and size, which I really love. So under there you have position, scale, you got, obviously you can rotate the stuff too if you need to. That's under motion. So, and the same thing goes here as it does for down here, this keyframe here. You can add keyframes here. Like let's say in the beginning of the video you want the video to be here, the position of it or the rotation of it. So you can, this toggle animation right here, you click that and it adds a keyframe there. And you click up here and now you can add, let's say the rotation, you want the rotation to change a little bit, so you rotate it just say 4. Now it adds a keyframe there now because you have this stopwatch on. So every time you move to a different point in the video and you change the position, it'll add a keyframe to it. So essentially what this is doing is you're kind of animating your video, you know, a few frames at a time. So now if you go back to the beginning.
Thank you for watching. The kids need you.
Well, if it was rendered, you'd see it slowly turning because we added those keyframes to the rotation. But once again, we don't like what we did, so we reset. So that's under motion. There's a lot of options there. I don't know much about this anti-flicker stuff. It has something to do when the video's looking funny, or if you're videotaping a screen, maybe you can take some of the anti-flicker there. So once again, you know, you can minimize this or open it. So I didn't like what I did there, so I'm going to turn that off, and this will say, if you turn that off, it'll say the action will delete the existing keyframe. So yes. So I'm going to minimize this. Now you have your opacity. So let's say you wanted to layer 2 shots and you wanted to see one over the other, you can change this opacity to 50%. And if there's a second video over this, like this, and well, let's say, okay, let me go back to this one, back to 100% on this one. But the video on top is the one that you have to change the opacity on to see through it. So see, now you can see 50%, so you see this shot underneath and then the shot above. This is helpful if you want to have a ghost in the shot or something like that, you know. So you can, as long as the camera frame doesn't change, you can have a ghost walk right through this. So okay, once again, you can reset it if you need to. Okay, so let's continue down here. So that's opacity. Time remapping, I haven't really played with this much. You may want to look this up on the internet. I'm not 100% sure what that is. Now this color corrector and RGB curves, these are layers I added. Let me take them off real quick. So you can kind of see, you know, what the shot looks like originally, and I've been playing around with some of the color correcting, just, you know, darken down the darks a little bit, and, you know, trying to, it's not perfect yet, it still needs to be tweaked, but if you don't like it, you can reset it. Now where I got these two effects from, the fast color corrector and the RGB curves, is right here, your effects settings. And this is awesome because you got audio effects, audio transitions, video effects, and video transitions, and there's a million of them in here. Now let's say, if you notice here at the end of the video, here there's this little thing right here, it says constant gain. That's a little confusing because it says constant gain, but it does the opposite. It only is a constant gain if it's at the beginning of the clip. If it's at the end of the clip, it kind of fades out audio wise. So it does the opposite at the end. But that's right here under audio transition. You can go under here and you got constant gain, constant power, and exponential fade. I haven't played with these two bottom ones much because this one does mostly what I need. What's nice about this is when you drag it on there, let me remove it real quick, it does it automatically for I don't remember how many seconds that is that it fades it out, but let's say you want your audio to fade sooner, you can actually left click here, but make sure you click on the, if you do this, you have to click on the effect, but so you can click and it tells you how many frames right there, how many frames you're dragging that audio effect over, so oh, I want to go a whole another second. So at this point on, the audio will start to fade out slowly. And you can also achieve that effect by the keyframe thing as well. If you want to click on the audio, click on your keyframe here, and then go to almost your last frame and click on another keyframe here, and then on here click on the actual keyframe, left click on it, and pull it down till it says 0, 00 decibel. And then what that has essentially done is killed the audio at the end, but it's allowing all this audio to fade down slowly. Now sometimes I will combo that effect with the constant gain. A lot of times I'll do that because you'll have something like right at the end of the audio clip, action, cut, one of those words, and you drop that constant gain on there and it fades out, but it doesn't fade out 100% before the clip ends, so you might hear that last word. So this is when this comes in handy. And if you want this to fade to 0 before, you just left click on the frame and you can drag it anywhere you want, up or down, but you can make it fade quicker. Let's say the word that you want to cut out is here, so you just make sure you click this to the left of the audio, and by the time the audio gets to here, it will be completely faded to 0. But with this constant gain effect on there as well, it'll help mask the fact that this audio may go down quicker. It could be unnatural sounding if you just do it by itself. So that's under your audio transitions. It's almost always good to have an audio transition at the beginning of a clip. You don't want to do them between audios too much, because if people are talking to each other in the scene and you put the fades between, it might actually layers the audio clips, and you'll hear part of one and part of another. It just makes it really weird. Let me give you an example real quick here. Okay, so right here, let's say you can see the audio clips for the dialogue here. So this is separate clips. Oh, and here's another option while we're sitting here too. If you click on it, you notice how it selects the audio and the video all at the same time. And let's say you wanted Tavia's clip here to overlap some of his dialogue, but you can't click and drag it over. Well, you could, but but now you're gonna cut off his dialogue. So here's a nice option. If you right click over the video or the audio, it brings up a whole bunch more options here. And the unlink button is the one you want. So you unlink it. Now it will select either piece. Voice won't line up anymore. So if you need to reconnect them together, you just select them both, right click, and go back up to link. And now they're linked again. But let's show, for the sake of unlinking both of them, I wanted part of Scott's dialogue, which is here, and I wanted her reaction shot to be there while he's talking. It makes the whole...
We'll keep this and we'll split all this up and sell it.
Actually, I kind of like that a little better. I may keep it that way because her look there is awesome. But the same thing goes for here. If I want to click over, so part of her dialogue, and he's, part of it's him reacting.
Sell it. Alright? Okay.
So anyway, that's one option there. It doesn't matter if you click them back and forth, because you're not moving them in the timeline. But like if I click this right here and it was up here, and I said, oh, I want this clip to be here. Oh, well, now the audio is going to be completely off because I didn't bring it with me. So like I said, you can go to right click, link it back together. So now anytime I move these two, they will stay together and they're locked in. Okay, so let me go back here because I changed some things. Okay, so that's a really nice option there, to know how to unlink these things so that you can play with that. Now another option here, let's say you did have a reaction shot up here of her that you wanted to use, and you said, okay, I'm going to set my marker here, my mark in. I want to use these 3 seconds of her doing this. Sorry, that was the wrong thing to do. Okay, we'll just use this as an example for right now. Okay, so I'm going to use these 2 or 3 seconds of video as my reaction shot. Now, one thing you will have to do and I don't know how to unlink the audio up here. I don't think there's a way to unlink it up here. So if you want to use this clip and the audio's there, and you want to put it here, just the video as like a reaction shot, but you don't want to drop the audio in, then that's when you drop it at the end of your video. Right click, unlink, select the audio, hit delete. You can just get rid of the audio there. Now this clip can go anywhere on a timeline above, so it cuts from here to here, but it's still the audio from the original clip. Now let's say you decide, okay, this is good, I really like this clip here, I think I'm gonna just leave it here. Well, rather than it being an extra layer and taking longer for it to render later, you can just pull it down and drop it right in there. And what it will do is it will replace whatever was there. And now see, that part's gone. Like, well, I want that back. Well, okay, you can just click and drag this back like that, and that replaces the clip. So, like I said, you can drop this in here and it replaces it. Now you got your reaction shot there, but it's still the original audio. So that's a nice option there for dropping in shots later, reaction shots and stuff like that. I'm trying to remember what else. There's so much to this program. Okay, let's go to these settings down here real quick. This is your arrow button, which is what I'm on. This allows me to click and drag anything, right click. You know, I can copy, and you know, if you want to right click and copy here and you want to paste it somewhere, make sure that you have the right video area selected, because if you have this selected, you know, and you want to drop the clip there, you know, go up to edit, paste, it'll do that, but it'll paste over whatever that you had there. So let's say you want it on the timeline above here, unselect this one, select this one, click edit, paste, and it will drop it up here wherever your line was at instead of down here. So that's another option there. So over here we got a few different things on here, as you can see. Pen tool, and the pen tool is kind of nice because it allows you to go in and I can't remember what the pen tool does now, but I'll have to look that up again. But you know, like the hand tool, you know, this allows you to move the timeline around without clicking on your moving your things here. You know, you got your zoom, so you can zoom in right away to wherever you want to be. Now the ones I use the most are the arrow button, because this allows you to click anything on any of these areas that you want. And then this little razor blade button right here, this is a lifesaver. You know, the razor blade only works in the timeline. If you're up here, it's back to the arrow again. And if you're even here, this is another nice option too. This is clicking forward and backward in your timeline. But like I said, you can also use these arrows, and it allows you to go one frame at a time, so you can get really precise where you want to be. So let's say you wanted to cut right there. Oh, let me get rid of this top clip. So let's say right here you set it 30 seconds exactly. You knew you wanted to make a cut there, and because you're going to put something else in there later, or you wanted to shorten this clip. So that's where the razor blade comes in handy. It will cut right there. But do remember, when both of these clips are selected, it'll cut the audio and the video. So if you didn't want that to happen, you can do what we showed you here. Right click, unlink. Now whichever one is selected is the one that it will cut now. So cut your audio, and wherever you hover over here is where it's going to make the cut at. You see the little straight line on the arrow there on the razor blade? It kind of gives you an idea of where the line is going to be cut at. So this allows you to make cuts anywhere you want, so you can pull stuff out. Go back to your arrow. Let's say you made a cut here because you wanted this audio to be shorter, so you can click and drag those right there. And sometimes if you do have a transition in scenes, go over to your audio transition, give yourself a little bit of a gain there, so that'll fade out now before it goes the other one. But you hear it dropped off because the other one didn't fade back in. So anyway, there's options there for all that stuff. Now let me show you real quick, while I'm thinking about it, some of the green screen options in here, because there are quite a bit. Let me import. Oh, here's another option. You want to know how to get all of this video in here, you have to import it. So you go into an empty space right here, and you can right click, and there's some options: new bin, new item, sequence, bars and tones, or import here, which is nice as well. So import will pull up this, which will be your whatever areas you have, and obviously this is the CASA stuff right here. but we want to pull in something that has some green screen on it. So let me show you a quick. It's taking a second to catch up with itself here. If it ever freezes up like that, don't touch it, because you'll make it freeze up worse, and then you'll have to Control-Alt-Delete to get the program to shut down. And so when it freezes up like that every once in a while, just step away, just let it do what it wants to do. So now I imported this in here, and let's say you decided you didn't want that clip in there after all. You can just keep it selected like this and press delete, and if it's not being used anywhere, it'll disappear.
Yeah, that's,
So okay, we'll do that in a minute. We'll get in the green screen here in a minute, but that is under video effects here, which is another thing I should tell you about while you're still rolling camera. We went over audio transitions, but audio effects here, there's also a few things: dehummer, delay, channel, denoiser, there's all sorts of flanger. You can see there's compressor, there's EQ, anything you want to do that audio can pretty much be tweaked in here. But there's also the other option of going to right click on the down here, and it brings up all these options again for audio gain and speed and duration. Well, right here is edit in Adobe Audition. Left click on that, and what it'll do is it will pull out the audio clip into the program for you. Here, I'll pull it up for you. Okay, so that pulled that audio clip into here, so you press play.
Well, that's all I can afford this time, all right?
So you can hear it.
We'll keep this and we'll split all this up and sell it.
Well, let's say
That's all I can afford this time, all right?
you wanted to do something with it. You have a whole bunch of preset effects right here. Under this presets right here, you left click on that, and it brings up all this stuff. These are more generic because there's not a lot of options for tweaking them. But I'll show you some other options here too. So let's say you wanted to add on the telephone. Well, it adds all these effects, but it hasn't done anything yet. You have to press apply first. So now it's changed it for you. So if somebody's on the phone, maybe you could do that as a tweak. But let's say you don't like that. You got your history button down here. You go right back, to where you started at. But right here is my favorite, effects. Up here on the top, and you go down and pull in. So this has a million things. You got amplitude and compression, you delay and echo. All sorts of fun things. Filter and echo. You got time and pitch, reverb. There's all sorts of things, and then each one's tweakable. So let's say you want to change the time and pitch. Well, right here it tells you your pitch shift, and this is your time. So let's, if you want to preview it, you press here.
Well, that's all I can afford this time, all right? And then we'll keep. Well, that's all I can afford this time.
So obviously there's not.
That's all I can afford this.
So you can play with that. I don't think we need it for this, but the point is so you click OK. It'll say applying stretch and pitch. And this is, like I said, just one. If you want it to stop right here, you click this arrow to cancel it. But if you go all the way through with it and you don't like it, there's always the history button down here to change it back. So this is a longer clip, so it's taking a few seconds for it to render 100%. But once it's done, you'll see the audio clip will change because it'll change the look of it just because of the effect. Okay, so now that that's happened, let's say right here you wanted only this first word to have an effect on it. That's what you'd do. You'd left click, like right now nothing's selected. So if you go up to effects, everything will get the effect. But if you go in here and you just want this first word to have an effect on it, so you go up to effect and you go to delay and echo, we'll drop some delay on it. Here you can preview it.
That's all I can afford this. That's all I can afford this.
So that will change just that section.
Well, that's all I can afford this time, alright? And then.
And one of my favorite things in here that we may not need for this, but is fun, this weird spooky echo is really cool. So I clicked on that right here. Now it hasn't changed anything. I still have to click apply, but you can see the audio You know. So let's say you get done and you're happy with the whole clip. So you go up here, you click save. Now what it will do is after you exit out here is it will replace this clip with the one you just did. So you're watching the movie, everything's fine, you know. You got mom here.
Is that it?
That's what he hears when he's wasted, right? So, but anyway, let's say once again you're not happy with it, so you go back to your history and you decide, oh wow, okay, I'm back to my original clip now. So, but that's called render and replace, is to edit in Adobe Audition with that. So now that I've gone through and chopped up everything, I'm going to go back to where I started, so it's back to what I had edited. Now, that's one of the options for audio, which is nice. Under these effects too, while we're sitting here, we have video effects and video transitions. Now the transitions are broken into 3D motion, which some of these are cool. You can see by the name of them what they kind of do. But the same thing if you I don't remember if there's a way to preview this, but so anyway, if you want to click and drag, you click and drag on any end of any video, or if it's like between videos, like right here, you see where the videos transition between each other right there at that cut. Let's say you wanted this one to do a cube spin out into this video. So you wouldn't just go on here and drop it at the end like that. You could actually do it between the two. It can be on either side like that, or in between, so that it transitions to two shots together. And there's a cube spin. That's what that looks like. So now we won't need that kind of stuff for this. So it just depends on where you want this at. A nice thing of having the effects in between is that when you go to a dissolve, you have a whole bunch of dissolves here. The most common dissolve is called cross dissolve, and that will allow you to put, you know, to transition these shots where they're cut together, you know, in between like that, like the classic dissolve. Now let's say it's too short for you. Well, you can click and drag that dissolve for as long as you want either direction in most cases. So this will be like a 10-second dissolve shot where it's all creepy and weird looking, you know what I mean. Let's say you don't like it, you know, just click on the effect itself, not the video, but the effect itself, and click delete, and you can take that effect out. So on the dissolves you also have dip to black, which is nice if you want to fade to black. That's what that is. Dip to white, film dissolve, which is, I think basically it's the same thing as kind of what we already were doing it's very similar to a cross dissolve. So that's nice right there. Then you have all these other options for transitions. You can zoom in and zoom out on a shot. Like let's say you do like a Ken Burns kind of documentary where there's a lot of photographs instead of video, and you want to zoom out from a cowboy or something. That's where you would do it right here. There are these different zooms. So you play with those, and they're all tweakable once you get them up here. You know, like here you see it zooms in and then back out. So that's a cross zoom. I mean, like I said, there's a whole bunch of different options here. See that one there allows that one there to zoom in. And right there's another option right there. So I mean, it pretty much is tweakable in any way that you can think of, and then just that's kind of an interesting effect. So then you got your wipes, which I love. The wipe, the classic George Lucas Star Wars wipe. You know, this one right here, where it just does that. That's in here as well. But also under the wipe is a whole bunch of other cool options. And this paint splatter one right here works for some things really well. I mean, not for this, but just saying as an example. You got that. Now this right here is a nice option here as well, because you can inset like that. The clock wipe is interesting because it does this. But I will tell you, don't overuse the transitions and do too many fancy things in one thing, because it'll start looking kind of funny. But so that's under all your video transitions. You have a whole bunch of options in here: page peel, page turn, roll away. You know, I mean, some of these I don't use a lot of these things, because to me this just looks like something you would find in a Windows movie editor, you know. But you have the options there for playing with them. So that's under video transitions. Now under video effects, this is where your power comes into play. And right here, keying, right there is your chroma key effect, blue screen key, color key. You know, there's a whole bunch of options here. Like these garbage mats are one of my favorite things, because you can click and drag this onto the clip here. And what this will allow you to do is, let's say you wanted to film yourself talking to yourself in a shot. Well, that's easy to do as long as the camera doesn't move. So you can come in here and basically this will allow you to see how it's a 16-point garbage mat. So what this does is it allows you to click and drag any of these and reshape it. So like, let's say you wanted to cut Scott out here of the or not Scott, but you wanted to cut Tavy out of the shot. You could almost go in and tweak this a frame at a time, where it literally lines up with where he's at. You know, and then there's a 4-point garbage mat, there's a 8-point garbage mat, and a 16-point, which is the one that I'm horsing around with now. So, you know, you don't necessarily even need green screen, because at this point we could almost make, you know, Scott, but what's nice is his hair won't get cut off in these shots, and you see this is limited on shape, you know, and what you can and can't do with this sort of garbage mat. But let's say you decided that you wanted a layer shot where the two of them are talking together, so you can come in here with a little bit less of a mat. And let's say right underneath here was Scott talking to himself. So we just cut all that out, and then the shot that will be layered underneath here would show up. So you can see right there with that garbage mat that we did, how we're able to layer a shot underneath him. Now if this shot were exactly the same color tone and the same camera angle, you wouldn't even notice that we layered that at all. So that's a nice, really nice option right there. Let me do a quick search while we're sitting here too. So that's under your keying element there. And this also, like it says, has chroma key, color select. So let's say we wanted to go in here and we didn't like what we did with Scott there, so we want to get rid of that effect. So we go back up here. You can either reset the effect or select on it and delete it, and it's gone. And so let's go to this color key real quick. Now this is interesting, because you see how you have your key color right here? You can click on the eyedrop and select a tone that's in here. Now that I've selected this color back here, we should be able to start to get rid of some of that. Now obviously the tolerance is a little bit iffy because of the people in the shot, so you have to be careful about how you do it, or you start cutting people off a little bit. But so anyway, you get the idea on this. What's nice about that is that the fact that you can go in and select certain colors, and then you play around with the settings until you get it to where you want it to be. Now obviously this is not well lit enough in the background to really separate them too much. So we go in here, maybe we can get this to select a little bit better. Yeah, see, I mean, some of the colors, it's just starting to blend into her a little bit because some of the tone is similar. So it's the same thing. If this were green screen, you would just do the same thing. You'd go in and select the tone that you want, and then you'd play with the tolerance of it until you till you felt like you got it into a workable area, and obviously just because this isn't separated that it has issues, but I need to get more green screen material because mine is a little bit small, but we can still definitely shoot something in front of it. Oh, here we go. It's, now over here I have a different monitor open. Now I can click and drag this clip right into here and it will copy it. So now I didn't have to search for it. Now I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go to open in source monitor. Now here you're like, wait a minute, James, you're not in front of the green screen 100%. How are you going to fix that? Well, that's easy. Check this out. File, new sequence. So we'll just do a test sequence here real quick. So we'll click this video down here, and obviously this is shot at a different format here, but we can right click on it and we can pull it up to the size we want for now. So okay, so try the chroma key effect in here first, and go in and click this green, and then we can play with it a little bit. So sometimes you have to play with the effect. Sometimes the chroma key doesn't work perfectly, so you try the color key. See if it'll select that instead and not bulldoze me out of the shot so much. I think what I need to do is also under your video effects here you have color correction. There's a whole bunch of them. I like this RGB curves because it gives you 4 options for changing stuff. What I'd like to do is just brighten all this up a little bit so the green's a little bit truer green. Okay, so this allows you to do a master shot, a green, a red, all that other stuff that you want. Okay, so sometimes if you brighten it up enough, that'll be enough to do that. Also, there's this ultra key here, which is nice. It's also a color keying thing. Yeah, this is really just a play with it thing because every green screen shot is different. And I'm not liking that one. So okay, let's just for the sake of arguing here, real quick, we'll play around with this a little bit. Not so that I disappear, but so that the green does. See, I think part of the problem is I'm bleeding over from the green a little bit. I believe that the green is on me as well, so that's probably part of the issue is that it. Okay, so for the sake of arguing, we'll say that's pretty close. So we obviously we want to drop a shot in the background of some kind. Maybe not that one, but now this is above this layer, so the green screen has to go above it. So you can see behind me there, it's starting to, the people are starting to show up back there. Okay, so if I wanted to, I have only the green screen in the one section, so that's when this garbage mat comes in handy. Because you can go in here, and now I can eliminate anything else in the shot that I don't want to see. You know, that start getting rid of anything that's not touching me. Pretty much we can this is when it comes in handy because if this is too far off I couldn't see it, I couldn't even reach it, but pretty much we're pretty close to, you know, eliminating all this other stuff that we don't want, you know, so it's not perfect because the green screen wasn't perfect to start with, but without this garbage mat, we still have the original shot next to me, which is the doors. With the garbage mat, I can get rid of everything that's not green screen, and then obviously the chroma key effect needs some tweaking and some work, you know, and you can also probably go in here to your keying and so we're getting closer to having me actually the green screen completely gone now. Now what I did there was I actually did two chroma key effects. And I think that's what took care of it. It's close. It's not perfect. There's still a little bit here. Sometimes it matters on where everything is layered as well. So anyway, you're getting the idea now of how the green screen and the chroma key works together to help the shot, you know, become not so much in there. And then here, obviously, I'm leaning back because that 16-point mat right there is cutting my head off, so I can just click and drag that, and boom. Okay. So, like I said, every time with green screen, it's always an iffy sort of compromise there. Oops, sorry, that was way too much. So, okay, so that is under keying. Now, other effects you have under video effects are different adjusting right here, or lighting effects are interesting. Shadow and highlights, these are kind of color correcting things. But I want to show you a generate right here. Generate is really cool because there's a few options in here that are set up to be cool. Like right here, let me pull that one out real quick. Let's delete that green screen footage. So let's say we're looking here at this and you wanted a lens flare, but you didn't get one when you were shooting. Well, you can drop it in there, click on it up here in the effects, and you can move it anywhere in the shot now that you want. Off screen even, which comes in handy when you're, you know, but see, you can move this effect way up here, way down here, so it shines differently, here, up above, or it can be right in the middle of the shot. But and the nice thing about this lens flare is there's different type of lens flares in here too, different millimeters of lens flare, so you can kind of play with the brightness of it as well. You can also blend it so that it's 50% instead of if it's at 0, it's the most brightest. But anyway, that's one really cool option right there. Like I said, you can click and drag it around the screen, or you can change the numbers here and it'll move it for you as well. So you can see what it does there. And you can even have the lens flare move if the camera's moving. You can have the lens flare animated to go with the camera, so that it takes a little bit of work, but it's really cool. So lens flare is kind of cool. Also under this generate, under the video effects, is this lightning, which is another fun option. A lightning bolt that you can add anywhere in the shot that you want. I mean, it can be, and there's a whole bunch of options here for changing it. But the same thing goes too. This has two ends that you can click and drag and move around, so that if you want a lightning bolt shooting through, that's a real easy option. Okay, also under video effects, under color correction, this is your best friend right here, fast color corrector. Remember that one. So if you pull it into the shot here, let me show you. Okay, so under this fast color corrector, once it's been, and the same thing goes for this thing here. If you click it and drag it on the clip, it'll drop it on there. Or if you click and drag it up to here, as long as the clip is selected, it'll drop it in there. You can drop it in either place. Now this show split screen right here is really cool because you can go horizontal or vertical. And what this will allow you to do is there'll be a line right down the middle. We're on vertical right now that shows you what you changed. So first thing I like to do is go down to this input black section right here and type in 25 and see what happens. Now you see how it darkened it down quite a bit, but let's go back up here to the top to the split screen. We'll go horizontal. Now on the bottom you can see where it's lighter, so let me make it a real extreme here so we can really see it. Now the top half, see how much darker it is than the bottom half? And if I go even darker, you'll really notice it. But this is the original down here on the bottom. This is the altered version. So you can also, it's at the top of that fast color corrector. You don't have to have split screen on. You can turn that off and it'll be all the editing, or you can do split screen. I said vertical as well. So there's half and half. And what's cool about that is that you can also, this little split view right here, if you click and drag it, you can see where it moves it. So you can look at only a piece of the picture or all of it. Or what I like to do is if I'm editing, like where the girl with the Smurf shirt is on, I would probably go about right in the middle of her with that line, and that way you can see, you know, basically the half the shirt and half not the shirt. Which color do you like better? Obviously I'm too dark on the left, but I went down to 100 on this input right here. So if I go back to original, okay, so this black input right here is nice because every tone of black and shadow in here, it'll just increase it a little bit and make it a little bit sharper. Now usually 25 is about right, anywhere 25 or less. Now this output right here, this is your output black. This also changes quite a bit if you lower the number. See, and darken it up a little bit more. This input gray is a nice one to lower as well, from 1 to about 0.90, because that'll darken it up a little bit more, take out some of the grays. And then right up here, I hate too much saturation, so I always go from 80 or 100% down to about 90. Now this is a little too dark, so let's say we wanted to give it more of a bluish tone. You can click and drag. See how it changed the tone there? Or if you wanted to have more of a pinkish tone to it, this is color grading basically. Or you want more orange. And these are just to the extreme, you know, to show you. Obviously you would never use probably this extreme, but you got your greens, different tones of greens, back to your blues. And you can increase it like this, or decrease it by going back in, or increase the color by going out to the edge. Like, see, you can see how much blue is in there now versus when I'm back here. So I mean, that's starting to become an acceptable shot, and it's not quite as washed out looking as this. This is a little bit too overly bright. But the nice thing about this is the fast color corrector. Now there are options in here. You can go to these auto levels right here and click on this. And what this will do is you click on something that you think is black in the shot, and something that you think is white, and you can't quite find something that's pure white in this shot, but pretty close. And that will do some color correcting for you of what it thinks it should be, you know. So a nice one to combo this fast color corrector with in the same area under video effects color correction is the RGB curves, which I showed you a minute ago. So click and drag that on here, and this will allow you to change your master tones and your red, greens, and blues. Now you can bring it up and brighten up the whole shot, you know, or bring it down and you darken up the whole thing once it takes effect here. Turn off that split screen real quick. So like I said, you can pull down your reds, you can pull down your blues, you can raise them up. And the thing is it doesn't have to be right here. I mean, you can go to any spot and make a mark and click and drag that mark to tweak this as much as you think possibly can imagine. Whatever you want to do with these different tones is possible. You know, I mean, obviously these are the extremes, but you get the idea of what the possibilities are. So, and once again, if you don't like what you did, just click this reset button right here, and it'll get rid of that effect, and then click this reset button right here and it'll get rid of that effect. They'll still be in the box, but they'll be reset back to 0, which it's taking a second here, but well, you can do some trippy stuff, man. Acid flashback. So okay, so we can get rid of those for now, but that gives you an idea of some of the options under color corrector. Now this another one under fast color correctors one, RGB curves, and this 3-way color corrector is nice too, because it gives you these wheels for changing a lot of tone. So this will, you know, this will be your, I don't remember, some of these are shadows, some of them are highlights. But I mean, you really can go in and be amazed how much things that you can change just simply by going in here and tweaking, you know. And what I'm doing here is this little box allows you to toggle the effect on or off, so that way you can look at it without and with and see what you did. So obviously I did a little bit of something to it just now, but not enough to make a huge difference. But so this one, I haven't played with the 3-way color corrector a lot, but I've heard from other people that it has some nice options. But I like the RGB curves and the fast color corrector more than anything else. But there's a bunch under color correction. Like this is leave color, so you can go in and highlight like this blue, and basically, you know, it'll help you. I don't remember what this one does now, but there's an option in here for something for deleting other colors but leaving one color in the shot, so everything's black and white except for the one tone. So, but like I said, I haven't played with that one a lot either. Now, that's pretty much all I can show you in here that I can think of right now.